Tech companies are once again coming under increasing pressure to address digital addiction. In a recent Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma, former employees of some of Silicon Valley's most prominent tech companies expressed their concerns about the risk of social media addiction. During a House hearing on the dangers of social media last week, former Facebook executive Tim Kendall told Congress the company intentionally made its products as addictive as cigarettes. Kendall also said he's worried the platform is contributing to the extremism in the U.S., which could push the country to the brink of civil war. Tim Kendall joins us now. He's the CEO of Moment and a former director of monetization for Facebook. Tim, it is so good to have you with us. So how exactly did Facebook take a page from Big Tobacco in addicting its users? And how pervasive is the addiction?
Well, it really just boils down to the business model, right? The business model is advertising based. And when you have an advertising based business model, your objective is to get more people to pay attention to your product and to pay attention longer each and every day. And so what's happened is you basically have an advertising business model that's combined with just ever-growing, ever more intelligent technology. And that combination is really potent. And what it's leading to is a product that's just fundamentally addictive for people. And it's causing all kinds of mental health issues. And I think it's eroding aspects of society. I mean, you just saw in your last segment, I mean, all this division and polarization that's happening along racial dimensions, along political dimensions, along conspiracy theories around health dimensions like COVID-19, all that polarization, I believe, is getting exacerbated by the algorithms that are powering these companies. And these algorithms are designed to drive more engagement. And the reason they're designed solely to optimize for that is that's how the business model works. They make money the more time we spend on those services.
And in your testimony, you said, quote, "We sought to mine as much attention as humanly possible and turn into historically unprecedented profits." Have companies like Facebook adequately, or even maybe not adequately, but even tried to approximate addressing tech addiction? Is there any incentive for them to do so?
I think they are trying to do it at the margin. I mean, there's some things in Instagram, for instance. There's a little bookmark that tells you when you're at the end of your feed. They probably lost money when they did that, and it was sort of a service for their users. So they do things at the margin. I think the reason that I'm becoming more vocal is I just don't think that they've really come to grips with the degree to which the algorithm and the service has caused real harm to the public sphere and to the mental health of all of us, right? I mean, there's really clear data that social media use is correlated with depression. It's correlated with anxiety, and I just don't know that Facebook has taken full accountability for that and really sought to work against that. And quite frankly, it may just all go back to the fact that the business model may be just plain wrong for these tech companies and for these social media apps.
So I watched the movie the other night. In it, you and some others describe the pull that social media has had on you in your own private lives, even though you knew exactly what was going on. What is your current relationship with social media?
I do my best not to be on it that much, because when I'm on it a lot, I don't feel very good about myself. I see other people's lives that seem to be a lot more interesting than my own. So it sucks me into these primal instincts that we all have for comparison and wondering if our lives are that interesting or worth living. That sounds kind of dire as I say that out loud. But my relationship is, I mean, if I'm really candid, it's a daily struggle because these things have a lot of pull on us. When I'm much more mindful of how much I use social media and I use it less, or if I'm able to put my phone down at 5 p.m. and not pick it up until after I put my 2 daughters to bed, I feel so much better. I feel so much more present. And I feel like I'm a better husband. I feel like I'm a better dad. And that's why I'm working on the project I'm working on now at Moment. We're really just trying to help people take back control over their phones because we've lost control of them. And to that degree, I think we've lost control of our mental well-being. And I think it's a scary time.
I think you make a really compelling case in the movie that we have lost control. I think that most people who are watching us talking right now probably think that they don't have an addiction, but that there is really this insidiousness about the dings, the being tagged in photographs, and all the different ways that all these social media companies have designed the systems to try and make us operate, even without consciously knowing how addicted we've all become. That's particularly interesting right now since we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are staying home. We're all online more than ever. Do you have any concerns about social media usage during a global crisis like this?
I mean, I don't think that the data that we see, we've got 8 million people who have downloaded Moment. The data that we see is that social media usage is up 20, 30%. So it's not super dramatic. I think what's really interesting, and we see this during the pandemic, and we actually saw it before, is just how disconnected our perception is of how much we use our phone versus reality. Most people use their phones 4.5 hours a day, the average person. If you ask that same group how many hours they think they use their phone, they use it 2 hours. They think they use it 2 hours a day. So there's a total disconnect between perception and reality. And if that's not enough information to make you think that you've just lost control, because you've lost control of your perception, it's completely disconnected from reality. And I think that's the danger of these services and these phones being used in an unchecked way, where we're just not mindful and conscious of how we're using them.
Yeah, well, in addition to all of our mental health and well-being, you also said that the platform could have other potentially serious implications. You say that social media could lead to civil war. Are you just, is this an exaggeration? What's behind this?
It's absolutely not. I mean, I think that we are seeing precursor indicators that we could be on the brink of civil war. And what I mean by that is that we've got a lot more protesting happening. We've got a lot more polarization happening. We're seeing a lot more violence in those sorts of situations. You just have to look at Charlottesville. You have to look at Louisville last week. There is clearly civil unrest right now. And when you've got a president who's potentially unwilling to accept the result of a democratic election, that is the beginning, in my mind, of a perfect storm where civil unrest could get amplified. And, how much further does it need to be amplified until it gets labeled war?
Until it's too late for us to do anything about it because we're so fractured. Well, speaking about the election, there are concerns about Facebook's role in election misinformation. And Facebook did take down some Trump campaign ads Wednesday over misleading claims about Joe Biden, COVID-19, and refugees. But Tim, do you trust Facebook and other social media companies to continue moderating content and ensure that election misinformation does not continue to spread on their platforms?
I mean, I think if I were to put a fine point on it, I just don't trust the algorithm. I don't think the algorithm is working in our best interest as an individual or a society, because the algorithm wants us to be fractured. It wants us to be polarized, not because it has a personality or an opinion, but because it is designed to get me to spend more time each and every day. And the way that it gets you to do that, me to do that, if we're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, is it reinforces our worldview and actually slowly and gradually and imperceptibly pulls us apart. And that's what's happening. So I don't trust these algorithms, and I guess by extension, I don't trust Facebook.
All right, Tim, I'm trying not to be completely hopeless about all of this. If there is going to be a solution, does that need to be modeled in the same way that the algorithms were modeled after big tobacco, that the American public or the world public needs to start suing social media companies because of the harms that are coming about for anything to change? Or are we really counting on lawmakers to do something for us?
Yeah,
How does this get better?
I think it's multi-factored in the sense that I think we as individuals have to do things. I mean, I think this is really analogous to global warming. And there was sort of that inconvenient truth moment when that film came out. I think it really shifted hearts and minds about the fact that global warming was really happening. And we as individuals needed to start doing something different. And companies needed to start doing something different, right? The oil companies needed to start being better actors in our world. And then the government needed to step in and provide better parameters, better boundaries, and in many cases, in the case of global warming, incentives to shift their businesses to cleaner energy technologies. And so I'm hopeful that sort of analogous movement can happen around, what I'll call big social, which are all these huge companies. And I think about YouTube and Twitter and Facebook that just have these gigantic businesses that unfortunately are predicated on manipulating our attention.
No, it all starts also with all of us being more aware and taking responsibility for
Absolutely.
our actions too. All right, Tim Kendall, what a fascinating conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.